Welcome to Makeup and Murder Monday. We are back after the holidays, and today we're going to be talking about a serial killer here in the Phoenix area. He was known as the Baseline Killer and the Baseline Rapist and a serial shooter. His name is Mark Goudeau. Mark Goudeau is a different kind of killer in that he had many different ways that he killed and things that he did that didn't always follow the same method or most killers have a certain style, a modus operandi, a way of doing a manner of killing and a way of going about things. And for this person who killed so many, Mark Goudeau was considered a rapist, a murderer, and he also did armed robberies. So he kind of did a lot of things that kind of fall under a wide range of crimes. Usually someone will stick with one type of crime, but he seemed to be the kind of person who didn't. And so kind of like the Golden State Killer, he was our very own. We came to know him as the Baseline Killer, but he started out as being called the Baseline Rapist. And this is going back to, let's see, he was arrested in September of 2006, but these crimes all occurred within couple of years prior to that. And so his trial went on for a lot of years. And, but I just kind of wanted to cover this case because although it is well known, it is very different than a lot of the cases that we do find with people who are murderers, who usually stick with one particular way of doing things. And a lot of times the crimes are not related to the way a person might want, to get some money from somebody or something. That's usually not the reason for murders and rapes. So the fact that he was a murderer, a rapist, and he was an armed robber. He was just an all-around terrible person that terrorized Arizona, Phoenix specifically, for a while. Now, the reason he was called the Baseline Rapist, according to this article on Wikipedia, was that he was first noticed around that area and for sexually assaulting people. So he was called the Baseline Rapist because he was found in the area sexually assaulting around the Baseline Road. He is believed to have committed 9 counts of first-degree murder. 8 were women and 1 was a man. And in addition to 15 sexual assaults on women and young girls, 11 counts of kidnapping, and a number of armed robberies, like I said. So it's a weird thing that he did all of those crimes because that is not something we typically see with somebody like that. The shell casings found at all of the crimes all were traced back to his weapon. So it's pretty ironclad that it was him. Although not initially linked, those crimes were happening kind of simultaneously. Eventually, and they also noticed that he had no particular motive, but eventually they did link all those crimes together. When these things were occurring in the summer of 2006, people were giving lots of tips on who it was or what the person looked like. A sketch was created and circulated. If you lived here in the valley, then you would know that it was really a big deal. His description was all over the news. It was everywhere. There were sketches everywhere. And residents were increasingly alarmed because it seemed so random, all of these things. They seemed random, and they were so violent. And so there were lots of community meetings, or, communities would get together and be on the lookout and talk about who this person is and what he's done. They offered a $100,000 reward for information on the arrest. But it finally took a year for police to come up with the suspect. And it turned out that Mark Goudeau was already on supervised parole at the time. And the parole officers were the ones who were able to look at the sketch and say, this might be our guy. So they searched his residence. They found a ski mask and a toy handgun that looked like an actual gun that was possibly used during some of his crimes. They used that information and obtained a search warrant, and then were able to find that it was indeed him. So on September 4th, 2006, he was arrested in connection with the sexual assault of two Phoenix sisters, which led them to the baseline. Led them to believe that whoever did this was the baseline rapist and killer. And they linked him by DNA back to some of the other crimes. And he assaulted a sister who was pregnant. One of the sisters was pregnant at the time. And they were assaulted out in public, in a park, just in public around a lot of other people. It was really sad, really tragic. On September 7th, 2007, Goudeau was tried and convicted of all 19 charges that were being held against him. And then it took a long time for sentencing to occur. Sentencing occurred on December 14th, 2007. So it took several months, I should say. And they sentenced him to 438 years in prison. And then on November 30th of 2011, so we're quite a few years ahead of where we left off, a Phoenix jury sentenced him to death under the murder charges related to the baseline killings. He is being held on death row currently. So if we look back at the timeline, we're talking August 6th, 2005, there were 2 sexual assaults, and then all kinds of sexual assaults, murders, robbery. All of those things occurred until he was finally arrested on September 4th, 2006. So we're talking a good year and a month of just all of these things terrorizing the Phoenix world, especially towards Tempe or Phoenix, in the deep Phoenix area. So, there was a false confession by somebody on one of the cases. He claimed the responsibility of one of the murders, but police realized that he changed his story, and that it just wasn't this person. There was also a mishandling of some evidence where a chain of publications in the Phoenix area published a story revealing that Phoenix Police Department had possessed the key DNA for a while and had done nothing about it, even though that would have been easy to catch him at that point. I mean, overall, it certainly is a better outcome that he was caught after a year and a month than some cases like the Golden State Killer, where it took, decades to find the person. Of course, we're living in an era of DNA, so that is part of why that is better today, and it's easier to find people. So he is known as a serial killer, but he's also a serial rapist, and he's also somebody who did a lot of armed robberies and burglaries. So it's an interesting case from a time in Arizona history where people were scared about that, and were pretty, it was a pretty shocking thing to happen in Phoenix, to go on for over that amount of time. So he was called also a serial shooter. And basically he terrorized, like I said, he terrorized Arizona for Phoenix area for over a year. So that is this story. If you have any other stories or cases that happen here locally, I like to keep things local. Just let me know. I'm happy to cover them. If you give me some links and stuff, I'm happy to also mention you. So just let me know. Anyway, thank you for watching Makeup and Murder Monday, and stay beautiful.